everyone. This is Lisa Vernon and Alexis Chaney and Dr. Peter Thomas. And we are collaborating with one another. And this is our part 2 of our series from mess to mindfulness. And we definitely need to have this conversation, especially now the world has gone kind of awry on us. And we want to make sense of things that we can control. And so we thought it would be in our best interest to collaborate and come up with a conversation with some events coming up in our area that you can participate in as well. And this is sponsored by Marlowe Joy Solutions and in partnership with Dr. Peter Thomas and Alexis Chaney, who is an amazing woman. So together we put together some questions, and we want to get to know Dr. Peter Thomas a little better, and he can kind of lead us into the event that they have planned at the end of the month, and you definitely don't want to miss that. But before we do that, we got some things that we want to kind of pick his brain, and I thought we would take you along the ride. So, Alexis, why don't you go ahead and go first and ask Dr. Thomas the first question.
So the first question, tell us about your background, personal and professional, and why you're so passionate about what you do.
Yeah, thanks. And again, I want to appreciate the time that both of you guys have offered me to be here and to kind of talk about this. Definitely something I'm very, very passionate about. My background is professionally as a psychologist. My cultural background is obviously as a white cis heterosexual male. So that provides me I'm not going to say a very unique perspective on a lot of this, but yet it is a perspective I think that has to be addressed and a perspective that has to be kind of self-examined as well too. And so just a little bit about myself and just how I kind of came to be with this particular passion is a little bit, I think I would say for a good portion of my life, probably all the way up into my 40s, I'm in my 50s now. I pretty much was a psychologist or mental health professional that just as far as my own background, I didn't really have much training in diversity. I would consider myself diversity ignorant and probably culturally ignorant. A lot of my diversity training within my own program was very otherizing. And by that I mean is that my program taught me how to work with people of color or marginalized groups as a white man, how to approach it from that perspective, which was okay, I guess, if you're a white cis heterosexual male. But that's also very limiting as well too, and just really understanding diversity and being able to appreciate diversity as well too. So initially my background and my growth in this was actually quite limited, and there wasn't much experiential training I had. And so now I wasn't very hip to the knowledge, and I wasn't very good at any of this because I really was kind of sitting in my own bubble of a lot of this for a long period of time. Once I started to do some of my postdoc training and I got into some diversity training and education from Texas Women's University, that really kind of changed things for me a lot. It really kind of turned me around on my perspective of things and really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things. That being said, opening my eyes does not necessarily mean that I am woke or anything like that. I am still very much subject to my own white bias and my own white perspective. I still screw up a lot of times in my diversity training and will kick myself in the ass later on afterwards when I realize some of the mistakes I made. But as long as I'm open to those mistakes and continue my growth, that's going to be part of the process. And that's part of acknowledging that for myself.
Now, see, I just love you even more. Even more. So Dr. Peter Thomas, I recently sent you an article about there's lots of words and jargons and terminology floating around that you've mentioned woke, and so that's a good segue into our next question for you. So if you could kind of think of maybe the top three terms that you can help our listeners understand, have a better understanding of the word as the words as they're expressed,
Sure.
and the events that are leading, especially the event that we're experiencing today.
Right.
Just kind of wrap our minds around what those things mean and
Yeah.
how we can understand it better.
And I'll start with one term that necessarily wasn't in the article, but I think is still relatively important, and that is the term woke, in that sense. And I think for a while, the popularity of that term woke and all that was pretty much out there in pop culture and a lot of that. And there were a lot of white people like myself who were flocking to the term woke and all of that. And I think after a while too, that there was also the backlash of shaming of that being able to grow and being able to learn about your own bias and learn about your own diversity issues and things like that. Eventually, from a lot of other white culture, the slapback to that was a lot of shaming, a lot of making fun of woke white folk and things like that. And so, that's a term I think that we use kind of a little bit more loosely now. We're a little bit more hesitant to kind of throw that out there, but it's important because it really kind of talks about growth and understanding and like, do you get it? Are you starting to get it? Where are you at on your path of diversity and in your path of being wokeness and all that? And so I want to try and destigmatize that statement a little bit and to say that it is okay to grow and it is okay to change and to be able to do a lot of diversity stuff and change is the point of all of this. If you do it and you're not changing and you're not growing, then you're not doing it. And so you got to get back on it and you got to do it. Getting to the article though, there are a couple vocabulary words in there that I kind of really attach to a lot. One of them is colorblind racism. And back in the 70s, being colorblind was like, that was like the big thing. I remember watching Schoolhouse Rock on Saturday morning, and it was, the great American melting pot, and we're all the same, and all of this stuff. And the idea that color blindness, that we don't see color, we don't see people of, color doesn't matter, we're all red on the inside and all that, which is all very true. We all are red on the inside, but our color matters because our color is also indicative of our history, and our history matters. And I think when we are colorblind, we're discounting other people's history, and we can't do that anymore. It's too important to include other people's history and the history of their skin, the history of their color, the history of their gender, the history of their sexuality, all of these things. So the idea of colorblind racism, I think for a lot of folks, initially being colorblind was a good thing, and we liked it. And part of things is that I think there's a big fallacy about colorblindness because we have to take into account people's personal history, about their backgrounds, about their skin color. That history matters. And I think when we kind of whitewash it or we take away the color from it, we're taking away those parts of the history that are truly important in that sense. Another one was the epistemology of ignorance. And that's a big one. That's like a pet peeve of mine. As a psychologist, I'm also a social scientist as well too. And so there is this emerging culture of ignorance that's kind of permeating, especially on Facebook and anywhere else right now. And it's not, I wouldn't necessarily say it is willful ignorance. I don't think people are going out of their way to be ignorant, but I think people are fighting the ideas that might perpetuate change, that might challenge their viewpoints a little bit and becoming more rigid in their stances and their perspectives, which I think that piece can be very willful in that sense. And so because of that, it decreases somebody's chances of opportunity of hearing a message that might evoke change or might even evoke peace for them in some situations. And so that's another big one, the epistemology of ignorance. Intersectionality, that's another big one. when we look at diversity issues nowadays, intersectionality is a big piece of this, because we're looking at how all pieces of our identity kind of converge into how we are and who we are as a person, and that each piece of that is important. So if you are a woman of color, you're a woman and you're a woman of color. If you are a Black gay woman of color, then you are a Black gay woman of color. There's so many different identities that kind of culminate into who we are. And I think we need to be able to take all of those identities into account and to be able to see somebody as a whole and not just one particular issue. A lot of times when we talk about race, a lot of times when we talk about diversity, race is like the main topic, and we just hit on race again and again and again. And that's fine, because the issue of race needs to be discussed. But we also leave behind other points of like intersectionality, such as sexual orientation, gender identity, other pieces that kind of make up who we are as a person, and how all of those things kind of convene into who we are and how we present to other people and who we are. And I think it's important that we're able to see the person as a whole from all of their intersections, from where all of their identities meet, to be able to see them as a whole if we really truly want to see somebody and truly really want to understand them. For me as a psychologist, if I'm working with somebody and I truly want to understand the person that's sitting on the couch across from me, I have to be able to do that. I have to be able to look at them and see every single part of them and how all of it culminates into the big puzzle piece that's sitting in front of me on my couch. So intersectionality is a big piece of that sometimes gets overlooked because we get too focused on one particular section and maybe not all of the others.
And it's interesting you say that. I know it's not a part of the agenda, but I just need to intersect this really quick, because I feel that way because I'm African American woman and a social worker.
Right.
So in a school district. And so when I'm called to action or support of one thing or another, I come in as all of those things. And and sometimes in my head, I'm like, I wonder what they really need from me. Version of me is showing up. Is social worker coming? Is there a cultural situation involving a family that they're having a hard time connecting with coming? Is there a need for resources and support? So I definitely can connect with you regarding that. Alexis, why don't you go ahead and ask your next question, ma'am?
Okay. What do you believe is the biggest misconception that people have about the lives of African Americans?
Hold on just a second. I made notes and now I've lost my spot.
You're good.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Here we go. All right, I'm back on track. Thanks, Alexis. I think one of the biggest misconceptions, especially about African Americans, that I hear a lot, and this is just speaking me as a cultural being and as a white male, is I hear a lot about the myth of meritocracy. The myth of meritocracy is this idea that if we all work hard enough, we will achieve the American dream. And it has this assumption that we're all starting from the same starting line as well too. And so if you don't achieve the American dream, it is because you did not work hard enough. Because America is the land of opportunity. And if you just take advantage of that opportunity, then you should be fine. But from a lot of my African American clients, I hear this phrase a lot: I have to work twice as hard to get half as far. And that's true. There's a lot of truth to that the system is not set up for necessarily equality. We're not always starting from the same starting point a lot of times. And some of us do have to work harder than others to achieve some of the same goals, or even just to get half as far as maybe other people have. And so I think the myth of meritocracy gets perpetuated again and again and again. And for a lot of my clients, especially some of my Black males that I work with, when they don't achieve that, they see it as a sense of self-failure, that somehow they failed. They weren't strong enough, they weren't motivated enough, or they didn't have enough energy to go to distance, or they didn't push it far enough. And so when they don't succeed, it is because of characterological reasons, personality reasons, and not necessarily because they're working in a system that may be set against them, that may force them to have to work harder, to work stronger and longer. And for a lot of folks, when they're not able to see that and to understand that that's part of the struggle for them too, then they end up feeling like a personal failure.
Answer this prompt for me. I got this from Oprah. So I'm gonna act like I'm Oprah for like 5 seconds. You ready?
Okay.
She says this is her Super Soul Sunday, so I got this prompt from her. What do you know for sure? And answer that prompt according to our topic that we've been talking about thus far.
What I know for sure is that I know nothing. I know nothing. I can assume it, but everything I'm going to assume is going to come from my own white bias. Everything I'm going to assume is going to come from my own white culture, my own white background. I can try hard to work with that and see through that and try and grow past that. But I have to start from the assumption that I don't know. I don't know what it's like to wake up and be Black. I don't know what it's like to be you. I can assume and I can make assumptions about it, but I do not know everything and all about that. And I'll never know about that because my experience has always been different and likely will continue to be different. So I have to start from a place of racial humility and racial humbleness with this. I have to assume that I don't know. And I don't know what it's like. I don't know what the struggle is like for you. So please tell me and inform me and educate me so I know what your experience of that struggle is. But I can't assume anything about that.
Wow, that's powerful. No one's ever responded like that before.
Yeah.
I want to give you a hallelujah and amen, but
I'll drink my coffee.
definitely coming. I don't want to get outside the box. Go ahead, Alexis. You got the next one.
What does the term co-conspirator mean to you?
Co-conspirator means to me, yes. So when I first hear that term co-conspirator, what I think about a lot is this idea of passive acceptance. And as a white man and within white culture, I see a lot of, again, I'm speaking for me as a white man and other people I know from my culture, not speaking for all white folk. I can't do that, but I can speak from my experience that being a co-conspirator is this kind of passive acceptance of racism and system bias and institutionalized racism and all the things going on around us. And a lot of times what I see and how we kind of co-conspirize with a lot of folks to perpetuate the system and to keep all of this going, especially from the white point of view, is we go, well, what can I do about it? I can't do anything about it. You know, I'm just one guy. I hear that so many times from people, and sometimes I just want to grab them and just kind of slap them across the face a little bit, because it is this passive acceptance of what is, with the understanding that, you know what, I'm privileged, I'm in a spot of privilege, you know, there's not much I can really do about that. It just kind of is what it is. To me, that's a co-conspirator. So you're assuming this passivity without any motivation for change, without any motivation to change a system that benefits you again and again and again, day in and day out. And so that's part of why I do a lot of my own diversity trainings as well too, is I want that to be part of my part. I want that to be part of what I'm doing and to be part of that change with that. And there are times where I have been complicit and I haven't acted enough. And it's my job to recognize when I'm doing that. And then it's my job to do something about that as well too. I shouldn't have to wait for somebody of color to call me out on it. I should be on top of that and I should be getting that. And so I have to work hard to make sure that I stay on top of my game, because if I don't, then I'm being a co-conspirator.
Mm-hmm. And you're just, I'm trying not to cry because I love you so much, because the next question has a lot to do with, you know, describing what an ally is and why, and how do you see yourself as an ally? Mm-hmm. And I think some of the things that you're so passionate about change and showing up, that you kind of kind of answered an ally question that we had, but do you want to expand on?
Yeah, I do, because here's the thing. So let me throw this out there, and then I'm going to explain it.
Okay.
I am no longer an ally.
Oh,
Let me tell you why.
okay. Tell me why.
I started out as an ally. That was my cooperative effort to support and encourage. And that's great. That's a great place to start out. But now I consider myself more to a point of activism. I'm more than just the ally. I want to be able to be the activist, to be able to elicit the change, not just support the change myself. And part of that is calling me out on the things that I really need to do to make that change happen and to be the change that I want to see in the world out there. And so to me, I think it's important to move from ally, just the supportive person, the encouraging person, giving voice person, to somebody who's actually helping doing the change too that needs to be done on my end of things. As a white man, how do I need to change white perception? How do I need to change white culture with all of this? And so I moved from ally into activism as part of my growth. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Now let me just, I have so many things to say, and I just Zoom. 40 minutes is not enough time for people like us. We want to give you an opportunity, Alexis, just follow my lead. And you got from ally to activist, you got a cultural promotion is what I was thinking in my head. But why don't we go ahead and allow you this time to talk about your event. If you all love Peter the way I have over the last couple of years, then you will love this opportunity that we are going to have right here in Collin County. So why don't you tell us about the event that's coming up? We have about 10 more minutes left, and if we have time for one more question, I'll let Alexis ask the last one.
Okay.
Do you want me to talk about the event, or Alexis? Oh,
Yes.
yeah, sure. So Lisa kind of helped me out a little bit with this too, is kind of with where we're going to be going. But a lot of this is really kind of reaching out and continuing to do some of the diversity work that, that I feel like I need to do. And Lisa's always been a big support and a big proponent of a lot of this. And she's allowed me into her world with doing a lot of these things as well too, which I'm so appreciative of, to help kind of give me that voice to really be doing a lot of this. So this is kind of another opportunity, I think for me to kind of do it. And again, like I'd mentioned before at the beginning of all this, is that I come at this from the only angle that I am really really qualified to come at it from, and that is as a white male and working with other people from my culture, from my skin color, from my gender, my orientation, all of this stuff, working to try and help and expand and grow things that way. I'm happy to be part of the voice with all of this, but when you think about the whole chorus, this is my voice over here. I'm the little alto over in this section over here, and Lisa's got her baritone over here in this section thing, but it's together with all this stuff that it's such a nice, wonderful sound. So it's a small piece of it, but this is the piece that I think where I'm kind of called to do it. So, for me, this is me being part of this course. That's really kind of the best way I can do that. And so with a lot of what we do with these trainings and these exercises, a lot of it can be very experiential sometimes, all of this stuff. And we try and make it, I wouldn't say we try and make it fun, but we too try and make it to have a high potential for growth. I think a lot of times with a lot of these trainings, especially now, we're trying to do a lot of this without guilting or shaming or really activating a lot of what I call white fragility with a lot of this. And it's very easy to do that a lot of times. And so it's trying to come up with ways to do that and to keep defenses from being activated, and really trying to keep people open to the experience and the experiential learning piece of it. That's the part that I think really developments growth. I don't think we're able to really eliminate bias. I think bias is something that I have that is not subject to change because of my morals or values. My bias is just my bias, and that is flat. It will always be that way. I was kind of programmed to be that way, but even though I'm programmed to be that way, I have control over my computer and what I type and what I put out with it. And so I want to make sure that the control I have is going to be the control that I want.
And tell us a little more about the event in at the end of this month at Collin County College.
Oh yeah. So we're having our the Collin County Psychological Association is having its annual diversity and ethics workshop, and it is a 6-hour workshop that we're having 2 speakers. Oh, and if you will allow me to get my phone, I will get you the details of all these particular topics. Can you give me just a second?
Yeah.
All right, hold on just a second. I thought I was ready.
Oh, Miss Vernon, I think you're muted.
All right. Let me pull it up here, gang.
Give you a chance to tell the audience who you are and what you're studying at UNT. You're very important, and you coined the phrase from mess to mindfulness. And I just definitely want to give you credit for bringing this to the light. This is your brainchild, and you and I have been connected since you were a high school student. I'm not stalking you or anything. I just believe you're the next generation is going to take over the world. Why don't you tell the audience what you're up to and what you're studying?
Okay, well, hello, my name is Alexis Chaney. I am a sophomore at the University of North Texas in Denton, and I am double majoring in music and psychology. I'm a voice concentration, and I'm also minoring in German.
She needs her own segment. That's
Wonderful.
She's amazing.
That is cool. Very cool.
Yeah,
very
she's
good.
Amazing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Go ahead, Dr. Thomas. We got about
All right.
minutes.
I have got my crap together now. Okay. So it is going to be on Friday, January 29th. We're going to have 2 very important speakers. One is Dr. Michael Waters, who's going to talk about race in America. And he's been featured on Nightline, C-SPAN, NPR, Ebony, and Nightly News. And Dr. Thema Bryant Davis, she's going to be talking about decolonizing psychology and providing ethical care for survivors of racial trauma. And then myself and Dr. J.M. Matthew, we're going to be talking a little bit about the ethics of all of this and kind of where to go to next and how to kind of evoke our own change from the information that we take in that day and how to kind of promote that with our clients in our private practice in psychology.
So make sure you, is there a website that viewers can go to, sir?
There is. If you go to CollinCCPA.org, you will, I'm sorry, it's CCPA-TX, Collin County Psychological Association, Texas.org. You can sign up there. There's an Eventbrite link to click on. The cost is $100 if you are a psychology student. I'm talking to you, Alexis. You have an opportunity for some good discounts on that as well, too.
Thank you.
I still consider you a psychology student.
All right.
You have embraced the field, and that is good enough for me. Always.
Well, thank you, everyone. I think that we're going to, I don't want anyone to be mid-sentence and get cut off of saying something profound and not able to follow up with any other comments or questions or concerns. So thank you both for allowing us to come together to talk about this necessary conversation. It is just the beginning. This has been a Marlowe Joy Solutions opportunity. So go ahead and look me up on my website, and thank you both for taking time out. You both mean a lot to me, and I care a lot about you. And let's tackle this thing together. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys.